Greetings, all my fellow wizards out there. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, the eternally sleepy boy, coming at you with another fairy tale. 100 Years Quest, Chapter Review. This time it's Chapter 26, titled About Rainhill. And this, if you didn't already know, is actually kind of a shipping chapter. It really starts to explore just how Gray feels about Juvia on a whole. Now, the finale of the original fairy tale series felt like it kind of made it obvious, but this feels like Mashima going back in and being like, look, I don't think all of you kind of understood where Gray's coming from, why he's kind of still almost denying how he feels about Juvia, so let's really hammer it in. Leave no room for debate about how he feels about her. Now, as our team have actually boarded the train on Tekka to head to Drasil, they end up having a one-off stop at Rainhill, much to the delight of Natsu and Wendy. And apparently they'll be stopping there for all of 2 hours, which apparently is pretty normal, pretty normal layover in terms of how the train stations work on this continent. So everybody kind of goes out and just has a little fun. Lucy, Natsu, Wendy, Carla, Happy, they all team up for one big raucous adventure all on their own, while Gray decides he'll do his own thing, while Urza stays back and watches the luggage, because somebody's got to be the responsible one around. However, as Gray heads up, he actually ends up running into Juvina, Juvia's doppelganger on this continent, who is the topless model, as Urza's doppelganger had spoke of. And they kind of just discussed the fact that they very much look like each other's significant others, I guess you could almost say. And Juvina, asked that Gray call her Juvina Dearest specifically. And she says that she's come to town on a job. And, Juvina very much is very flirty. She's very different from Juvia, who's always very passionate and always saves herself for Gray and all that good stuff. Juvina is very much very flirty, and she embraces who she is, her profession. She doesn't deny it in any way, shape, or form, nor should she, that kind of that kind of her profession is very, normal. You shouldn't demonize people who work in those kinds of industry, because ultimately it's a job and you're getting paid for it. Juvina also gets a front row seat to Gray's habit, which she starts to wonder if, Gray is also a male stripper like her Glenn. But, Gray writes it off as just an old habit that, that's just, a result of his training with his master from back in the day. But, Juvina also kind of calls out Gray on the fact that he has very mixed feelings for Juvia. He realizes that Juvia probably would be very not too happy about the fact that her significant other, or the person she loves, is going around showing his naked body to someone else, and vice versa to a certain degree. But he continues to deny how he feels about Juvia when Juvina presses whether or not Juvia is his lover. But once Gray makes it clear that our relationship isn't so much like that, Juvina takes this moment to go on a date, basically, with Gray. So they grab lunch, try on some clothes, she has to continue to put up with Gray's stripping habit, and they all together just have a fun time. But, once their day out together kind of comes to an end, Gray kind of inquires as to how she feels about Glenn, and Juvina makes it clear that she isn't quite sure how Glenn feels towards her. He seems very dissident. He doesn't really try any moves on her or anything. She's always the one pushing for the relationship and all of that. And she says she's pretty much on the verge of giving up. She finds that she's getting frustrated, and he feels that he's constantly avoiding her, which Gray starts to kind of feel bad because this is exactly how he treats Juvia to a certain degree. But then Juvina goes on to say that she's fine with the way things are. She wants to love more than she wants to be loved, so she's perfectly content with the way things are because that's what makes her happy to a certain degree. But, Gray then wants to help out almost, just offer her some advice on how maybe to kind of get in good standings with all of that stuff. But, ultimately, Juvina feels that if Glenn actually hated her, then maybe it would be best if he just said so, which Gray kind of has this knee-jerk reaction in saying, I don't hate you, which, Juvina, he clears up that he's talking about Juvia because of the situation. And Gray comes clean that he cares about Juvia a lot, and he feels that he's just not good enough for her at the moment because of the incident towards the end of the series, honestly. So Juvina kind of messes around with Gray to a certain degree and, basically flashes her tits at him, which is always fun. But she says, hey, it's on the house. But Gray kind of it really solidifies to Gray that she is very much not Juvia. But he thinks about the fact that Juvia has this scar on her waist because of him. And he very much regrets that moment. That is that thing that just really doesn't quite sit well with him. He feels he has to grow stronger as a person in order to protect her, be there for her, not be something that drags her down. He doesn't want her to be, dragged down with her. She wants to be someone who can hold her up, as she very much wants to be that for him. And so they kind of part ways when, Glenn shows up to meet with Juvina, and it becomes very clear that they're actually in a relationship when Glenn questions Gray as to whether or not he, tried to seduce her, his Juvina. But, then Juvina makes it clear, it's just like, yeah, I'm sorry, we're already going out. I heard from Urza that the whole situation between you and Juvia, and I've kind of felt a little bad for Juvia, so I just wanted to do this to really get to understand where your feelings were and to hopefully push you into a better direction for things. She also clarifies that she is not in fact a topless dancer, which Glenn's just like, yeah, there's no way I'd ever let any guy see my girl naked. And we even see that, Juvina cleared up to Ericus. Well, she clears up to Gray that she had just told that to Ericus because she's so naive and would so easily take in that thought and just run with it and just be so flustered with it. She basically just said it to mess with Ericus. But when he tries to question Juvina about, basically flashing him, she's just like, hey, just keep that between you and me. So she's very playful, very Minx-like, and a very interesting take on Juvia's character. Very fun. And as Gray arrives back at the train, we come to find out Natsu had his own flashing party with the fact that he completely burnt off Wendy and Lucy's clothes during a bit of a misunderstanding when some dudes were apparently hitting on Lucy. But Lucy gets to have her comeuppance as Natsu just doesn't seem to care like he usually does about, basically embarrassing Lucy. But as soon as the train starts up and Natsu starts to get a very motion sick, she starts teasing him and messing with him. But Urza, however, notices that Gray seems to have this kind of embarrassed look on his face. And when she asked him about it, Gray says he just wonders what Juvia's up to. And then someone out of nowhere says Juvia's doing well. And he's like, oh, okay, is that so? Only to be shocked that the person who said this was Juvia herself, having somehow shown up on the same train as them out of nowhere, with Gray still having the thought of Dearest in his mind by calling her Juvia Dearest, which catches her off guard to a certain degree as well. Now, if you don't know, now you know, but this is obviously Toka's doing. Toka the White Witch, because Juvia was in the Fairy Tail Guild. She took out every member of Fairy Tail as well as Jalal, and then next thing we know, we see Toka on a ship heading to the same location as our heroes. And not to mention, Toka has the ability to control people through the sapping of their magic. So I would not be shocked at all if it turned out this is the machinations of Toka the White Witch, and she will basically be sending various members of the Fairy Tail Guild after Natsu and the gang to antagonize them. I very much feel that's where we're headed with this, but you know, who really knows? But it's the only real explanation as to why Juvia would just pop up there with a suitcase and all that. It's got to be a trap. It's a trick, it's a trap, it's a deception. It is definitely not so simple as Juvia just being there. But that aside, a nice chapter to reinforce just how Gray feels about Juvia, if any shippers had any doubts about how that was going. Because, you know, it's been obvious, especially around the time of the second time skip, that Gray has obviously gotten very used to having Juvia around. He very much has grown to care for her. And, you know, they were living together and all that. I can't feel that Gray didn't have some emotion towards Juvia still. But, you know, they keep kind of slinking it along for the sake of drama and having something to fill in certain moments in the plot as a whole. So, honestly, if this series ends and they're not solidly together, I'm actually going to be very disappointed, because Mashima keeps, you know, pushing this whole situation, but we're still not seeing that payoff. So you need to execute that, Mashima. You need to go through with that, or else you're just wasting your breath just reiterating how they feel about each other. Come on, man, get it into high gear. But tell me your thoughts on this chapter in the comment section below. Tell me your thoughts on the situation between Gray and Juvia. How do you feel about that? Do you actually care about their whole relationship issues? Or do you not so much care for the relationship aspect of Fairy Tail? One of the few series that really have honestly been exploring that from jump, at least with certain characters. And how do you feel about Juvia showing up here? What do you think the reasoning behind her showing up actually is? And do you agree with my thought that it has to be the machinations of Toka the White Witch? So tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. If you liked this video, leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below. And subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you never miss out on another Fairy Tail, The 100 Years Quest episode review. And if you want to find me on social media, just Google Duuz-Diz-Din. I am everywhere, for better or for worse. And until the next video, just remember to make your feelings known, because you never know when you might have the next chance to see the person you care about once again. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm going to bed. Goodbye, everybody.